Feeling overwhelmed by shipping complexities and industry jargon? ProShip ParcelCast Unwined is here to help. Join us as we unwind with industry experts, break down complex topics, and make shipping enjoyable with a cocktail in hand. Learn about the latest trends in technology, navigate carrier changes, and gain valuable insights from the pros. ProShip ParcelCast Unwined. It's your one-stop shop for simplifying logistics, one sip at a time. Brought to you by ProShip, the last shipping software you'll ever need. Now, ready to help you ship smarter, not harder, here's your host, Jerri Dixon.
Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of ProShip ParcelCast Unwind. Balancing act, shipping efficiency without breaking the bank. And today we're joined by Timur Eligulashvili of Logistix Remix and Justin Cramer, co-founder of ProShip. Timur and Justin, could you please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about you?
Hi, Jerri. It's great to be here on with you and Justin. I'm Timur Eligulashvili. I'm the founder and president of Logistix Remix. We help retailers and 3PLs bring new last mile delivery providers into their network to save on cost, improve delivery, and drive mutual success. And then prior to starting Logistix Remix, I was VP of sales for Lone Star Overnight, a regional parcel carrier in the South. I've been in the freight and logistics space for a little bit over 20 years.
Okay, and I'm Justin Cramer, co-founder of ProShip. I've been in the logistics market just a wee bit more than 20 years. And in that time, I've been fortunate enough to be able to not only design, develop, implement, and deploy, as well as sell shipping implementations from a couple packages a day all the way up to several million packages a day, from a single location all the way to implementations across 4 continents. So I'm glad to add my expertise today.
Thank you both for joining me, and I am Jerri Dixon. I have a little over 20 years of logistics and supply chain experience. You may have met me at the shows, and if you have not, please come to our booth at Modex so we can meet you. So to jump into the overview of this episode, we're going to be diving deep into strategies and considerations for businesses to navigate the complexities of shipping and to also achieve significant cost savings. And cost savings is a necessity in today's fluid and unpredictable parcel market. And before we get started, we wanted to let you know that we are going to be doing something a little bit different this year in some of our podcasts, and we like to call them our cocktail mocktail segments. And a little bit about what we're going to do is our marketing department was kind enough to ship all of us this really neat cocktail in a box. It looks like this. It has all the ingredients in it that you need to make, in this specific one, 6 cocktails, but we're just making one. And you just add your liquor and you're good. So today's drink, our episode drink, is called the Cost Cutting Sazerac. Now, I've never had a sazerac. I'm not much of a whiskey person, but Justin is a rye person, so he knows more about that stuff than I do. And if our guests don't want to do cocktails, they can do mocktails. And Timur jumped in willingly, and he's made a mocktail as well. So we're going to get started. And before we get started, this is what she looks like. I put mine in a coupe glass because I'm from the South. We put everything in a coupe glass. Inside of this cocktail is cane sugar, sazerac bitters, lemon bitters, absinthe, and rye whiskey. I'm not very excited about this, but don't let the sazerac fool you. It might seem like it's just a simple cocktail with a few ingredients, but getting it right requires skill. Kind of like optimizing your shipping costs. It's not always about just trying every strategy in the book. You have to try every strategy in the book, sorry. But it is about the details and understanding the nuances. So you can take a basic recipe and turn it into a masterpiece, just like you can slash your shipping costs without sacrificing quality. So Justin and Timur, thank you for joining me. I raise a glass to you and cheers.
Cheers.
Here's to cutting costs. Oh,
I'll drink to that.
It's oh. Oh,
I still stick with my saying that the only thing that whiskey needs is an ice cube.
did
There
I
you
turn
go.
into a dragon? Woo! Golly, Timur, I'm with you next time I'm doing a mocktail.
Yeah, so you can, your second drink should be a mocktail. There you go.
Okay. Yep. Well, that's good medicine for COVID, I think. Wow. 2 sips and I'm done. Okay. So let's get started on our discussion. Regarding challenges that businesses face in understanding and predicting their shipping costs. Timur, what are some of the hidden fees and complex structures that often catch shippers off guard?
Well, let's talk about the most recent one. We just entered 2024, and right around January, that's when the carriers published their new rates. And what we've seen the last 3 years is the highest general rate increase. The GRI is what they call them, general rate increase. In 21, 22, and 23, and then going into 24, highest on record, right? Something we haven't seen in the last 10 years, but highest on record in the last 3 years. So going into 2024, both FedEx, UPS announced a 5.9% increase. I think USPS came in very similar. I think they were somewhere in the mid fives. And that's just on the base rate, right? So there's some more, right? And the reason I bring this up right now, I think it's important because you mentioned hidden, right? So if people didn't set their calendars, they are not aware of the exact date this is happening. It's happening. The rates are increasing. But the GRI I just mentioned was just for the base rate. Then you've got to consider the accessorial charges, right? The special services charges, because those have to be looked at separately. And the reason I say that is if you look at an accessorial, let's bring up something like additional handling. And this is an accessorial that's charged for items weighing above a certain amount, or they're being shipped in a non-standard box. And that accessorial, the GRI for that went up 20%, right? So again, all those hidden costs. If you think it's 5.9, it's not. Go back, go look at it. It's right around 20%. And another one that's a little bit more obscure, I think, is your delivery area surcharge. And I think the carriers, they designate every year. They have their zip codes that they designate as extended areas, remote areas, delivery areas, where they tack on an additional charge to deliver to those residences, to those addresses. And one thing you'll notice is going into this year, I think I read a few articles. I didn't do the analysis myself, but someone else did. Thank you. That about 2.75 million people's zip codes were added to that delivery area surcharge, right? So those customers, if they're ordering from you now to ship to that customer, it's getting a little bit more expensive. And 2.75 is, it's pretty sizable number. And one more I should mention. That maybe was under the radar a little bit, unless you're really paying attention to the news, is that there was the carriers also increased their fuel surcharge, right? So if before they were paying 14, you're paying 14% on top of your base rate. Going into this year, that went up 125 basis points. So that 14% turned into 15.25%. So again, you kind of have to look at each thing individually. I bring it up because, again, unless you're paying attention, unless you're analyzing it, those are hidden to you.
And Justin, those types of fees, are they applied like at the same time, in increments?
Now, one of the interesting things is that now we've started to see a lot more fees that are intermittent. The demand-based charges are probably one of those, where right now they're only applied certain portions of the fourth quarter and very, very early into the first quarter. But as the name change, moving from peak season surcharge to demand-based charges, implies that we might actually see those change on a per customer basis. So if you've been used to being a traditional retailer and maybe you go to, let's say, a sporting goods supplier, where your peak season is now late Q1 as spring starts to show up, you may see those then. So what we're seeing is really a greater amount of complexity in the in the way these surcharges are applied and when they're applied, making it so that you can no longer just look at a rate and zone chart. I'm sorry, a weight and zone chart to truly be able to figure out what your packages are. And as I think about it, I remember when fuel charges were first introduced into shipping software, and they were single digit. And now, Timur, you were just saying we're looking at greater than 15%, which is odd because, well, the price of oil isn't exactly sky high right now. So it's interesting. We know there's a lot of charges. We know there's a lot of idiosyncrasies in coming up with an actual rate, the amount that your CFO is expecting to pay. And I think that's the key to getting good shipping software, is ensuring that whatever you get is going to take all of these things into account, especially if you've negotiated them down, but take all these things into account in order to give you the actual rate you're expected to pay, especially if you're going to rate shop against other carriers in order to try to provide a similar service at a lower cost.
Speaking of costs and carrier practices, I worked as a senior account manager for UPS for some time, and there were things that not just UPS, but also FedEx would do to help customers in their contracts, but sometimes helping them in certain tiers would hurt them, in other tiers or with certain services versus other services. But what are some carrier practices that those carriers might use that maybe would cause some unexpected impacts?
Yeah, that's a great one. Again, you gotta devil's in the details. You've got to really dig in and understand what you're shipping and what it's going to cost. To Justin's point, the total cost, the actual cost. One thing I'll point out is most carriers they charge based on weight of the package, right? However, there's also a caveat to that, and there's something called the dimensional weight.
Yeah.
So this is where they take the cube of the package divided by a dim divisor. In most cases, the standard is 139. And if that turns out to be greater than the actual weight, then the retailer, whoever's shipping that box, will be billed at the higher of the two, the dimensional or the actual weight. Something to watch out for. I'll give you an example. So we ordered shoes for our 2-year-old, and the shoe box, you can imagine, 2-year-old shoes are really tiny. But the box, the shoe box, the box that it was shipped in was huge. I mean, it was so large, like you could ship like 20 pairs of shoes in that box. So that retailer, potentially, right, will be getting hit with a dimensional weight charge, even though the shoes are so light. They're definitely, they weigh ounces. They might be paying for several pounds to ship that package.
Taking up space in the truck, in the package car.
Oh, exactly. I mean, there's retailers that are shipping a lot of air around the country, right? And while it's a challenge, while it's a problem, I also think there's opportunity there.
Good points. Another thing that's floating around out in the industry is some talk about carriers simplifying their pricing or possibly dynamic pricing. Justin, do you see potential changes in the industry in regards to dynamic pricing?
Absolutely. I don't know that I would call it simplification.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I see it as the single most complicated thing for logistics managers that they're going to have to deal with. But demand-based pricing makes sense for the carriers. It's really about looking at what is in a particular lane and determining whether or not they want to add another line haul to that lane, determining if there's any room left in the trailers that are already going that direction. It's really going to make carriers more efficient, and they're going to get the best bang for their buck. And what this also means is that now when we start looking at rate shopping, we're used to looking at when it crosses the scale. As soon as we can get that thing fulfilled, as soon as that box is taped closed, let's get a label on it and let's move it towards a trailer or towards a pallet or something so that we can prepare to exchange custody, okay, and turn that over to the carrier. But with demand-based pricing, it's going to be possible that it'll be cheaper to ship this tomorrow, especially if we can get if we can still exceed the customer service level. but that it can be materially cheaper to ship it the next day. And so if that happens, we do have to worry about, well, I'm so used to everything I put a label on today, leaving today or going into the trailer that will be pulled tomorrow. Well, now if we do start to really take advantage of this demand-based pricing where tomorrow's pricing could be cheaper, we're going to need a place to store tomorrow's packages until tomorrow's trailer gets here. So just one of those things you have to look at. We do know that there are several of the new carriers that are doing that as we speak. And I do know that we'll just call them the national carriers are looking into options. Because again, it's a very efficient way to run a delivery company. Okay, so whether or not it's going to stick, we'll see. I think that's going to depend upon whether or not we as consumers and logistics managers are willing to support that. But that's to be seen. But it's going to be interesting, and it's going to impact a lot of companies, a lot of shippers over the next 2 to 3 years.
Good to know. Now, balancing established carriers with alternative carriers often comes up, and we've talked about it at length. Timur, you have some great tips for folks out there. Can you explain the pros and cons of the established carriers versus alternative carriers and how businesses can find that right fit?
Yeah, I mean, Jerry, you're basically asking me the $1 million question right now. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, why would I use multiple carriers, right, in the first place? And I've got a framework for this. I call it the 3 C's, and it stands for capacity, cost, and capability. Capacity is super easy, super self-explanatory. Like, think about it this way: no one wants to be stuck in a situation where one single carrier cuts them off and they have no alternative options. I mean, we've seen that, right? We saw it, we lived through it in the last 3 years. On the cost side, that's also an easy one to get behind. I mean, that's the theme of the drink, right? We want to cut costs, right? So who doesn't want to do that? And what I'll say is the difference between those alternative and regional carriers and the nationals is a lot of times they're running more efficient operating models. They're not spending as much on their marketing, running advertisements, and they typically run very lean as organizations. So their cost structure allows them to pass on the savings, especially in that short zone where a regional carrier will deliver, let's say zone 2 to 3, 300 miles, sometimes even up to 600 miles. But they can be a lot more aggressive on pricing and pass those costs along to the retailer. And the third one is the capability. So this is everything else, right? So, and I think it's the most interesting to me. Like, can this carrier provide maybe faster delivery from point to point? Do they have better on-time performance? Do they specialize in delivering certain type of product? Or do they have certain technology that stands apart on the tracking side, et cetera? Or are they easier to work with, right? So everything that goes along with, what's their differentiation? So there are times where, so it's a good idea to have multiple carriers, again, to save money, to get capacity that you need, and to get the capabilities that you need in specific markets. But there are times where it just doesn't make sense, right? So you may be a small business, and at that point, it's just time to grow sales, right? If you're just starting out or you just have a few parcels a day, just focus on growing sales. However, there's also other constraints. You may be selling on a marketplace where they only allow certain carriers to handle the shipping. Okay, so you've got some constraints. But outside of that, the rest of the universe, I mean, you're pretty much open to using whatever carrier mix you want. And I always think, go back to the 3 C's, right? Does it make sense? Well, do you want capacity? Do you want to save money? Do you want new capabilities? If the answer is yes, 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 great. Like, then it does make sense to look at a mix.
Great points. Good advice. Shifting gears to negotiations. What are some key points businesses should focus on when negotiating shipping contracts? And can you both elaborate on specific elements like base rates, surcharges, and dimensional weight? Timur, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty big question, because if you think about any carrier rate negotiation, there's probably, from what I've seen, at least like 20 items that you're probably looking at, evaluating, negotiating. Just really depends on how complex your shipping operation is. So I'll give you some that are rate based and maybe some non-rate based. So on the rate base side, it's your discounts on your base rates. It's your discounts on your accessorial charges, your discounts on fuel surcharge. So you really want to understand, as a shipper, which zones and weight breaks are going to be the most impactful. So if you're shipping everything up to 5 pounds, like negotiating for a discount above 10 pounds doesn't make sense, right? As just a simple example. So really focus on, what services are you going to use to ensure that your negotiation is the most impactful. Same thing with accessorial charges, right? Like, for example, additional handling. It'll be an accessorial you're going to want to look at closely if you're shipping some items that are, not standard shape or heavier. So that's going to be one you're going to want to pay attention to. And then, and we touched on this earlier, but your dimensional weight versus your actual weight, how are you going to get charged? And there's the DIM divisor. So something, again, to look at. The DIM divisor, if your boxes are going to be just kind of larger than a standard 12 by 12 by 12 inch box, you're going to want to look at, okay, what kind of a DIM divisor am I getting? A standard one is 139. Well, how do I increase that? Can I get a much higher DIM divisor so that I don't get billed as much for my shipments? And then I go back to the other items that are, not rate discount based. So that's your payment terms. How long is it? What kind of terms do you have? How much time do I have to pay you? Maybe claims or damages. What happens if that item is lost or if that item is stolen, or damaged in transit? Sometimes even a multi-year agreement. You're entering into a relationship with a carrier, not just for 1 year, right? You want this to be a long-term arrangement. So why not take the opportunity to negotiate some kind of discounts if you're going to get locked into a multi-year agreement, and some kind of rate cap, so that when they do their 5.9% increase every year, maybe you're not getting that 5.9, you're getting something lower than that.
That's right.
And
they shouldn't
so,
be afraid.
Look, and so on. I think we could keep going, but I'll hand it off to Justin. I probably covered some of them.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's 20 plus. Maybe he can touch on some others.
Well, what I'll say is that you covered so many, and the job of a good shipping software is to be able to accept those. And when we look at, because we're famous for our premise-based engines, when we look at the rate modifier tool that we have, especially for accessorial discounts and things of that nature, some of our carriers have more than 200 fields that can be entered. And I'm not talking about the weight zone breakdowns. So, when you're working with somebody who can help you find the right discounts, or if you've got a great logistics manager, understand there are a lot of discounts out there to be made available. I am, however, going to move from discounts to something that I think skews the process of rate shopping, and something that, maybe I'm just not fond of it, but and that is rebates. Everything we've just talked about is something that you can put into a piece of software and you can properly calculate your rate, okay? So that you can truly compare various carriers against one another. Some of the carriers now are starting to do rebates after the fact, so that it becomes more difficult to actually determine your true cost of a package when it's sitting on a scale. So I take it the way you want. Maybe you can go ahead and fold that back into your discount components, but understand that is something that is just another tactic that carriers are using at this point in time in order to blur what is something that should be calculable at the time that it's sitting at the scale. So that's what I wanted to add to all that.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, plenty of things you can get discounts on.
So do you guys see customers negotiating for rebates? And can you explain what a rebate is and how that affects the shipping rate at the scale?
You might do a better job of explaining what it is, since I'm like, the first time I heard it, I was like, you're doing what now?
Being out in the field, you could offer these with when negotiating your contracts. And it's been many, many years since I've been out in the field. So I know that Timur has much more experience in that.
Yeah, it's like, again, it's one of the items. It's not the only item to negotiate, right? So, one thing I say is like, you can negotiate one part of the contract and you can get the best deal, but you may not get it in another part of the contract because at the end of the day, the carrier is gonna, make something that's economical for them. And but that is the game that's played, right? In this industry, there's a lot of negotiating happening. If I can just touch on that, I think is what's important to really understand is effective negotiation, right? One, because the only way I think you can achieve effective negotiation is to benchmark, right? So really understand, okay, given my scenario, given how much volume I can provide, I can allocate to this carrier, and the services I want to use with them, what's the best rate that I should be receiving, right? What's the best ultimate total deal that I should be getting? And the only way to know, right, is to benchmark. And there, you're not going to find this data like just going on Google search, doing a Google search. So you have to find it. So there's two ways that I think, and there's probably other ways to do it, but one is just running an RFP process where you're comparing multiple carriers against each other at one single point in time, and you're getting them to bid on your business. That will quickly help you understand what's out there, what's available. Of course, you can negotiate from there, but again, just comparing rates at a single point in time is good. Another way is really to leverage like a third party, a consultant that has just a lot of understanding, a lot of data on rates, a lot of market trends, what can be negotiated, how can it be negotiated, because maybe that could become a shortcut, right? And it could really help you understand, okay, given my shipment mix and how much volume I'm shipping and the size of the box, et cetera, where I'm shipping to, here's kind of what I'm shooting for. So again, consultants can help you, but either way, again, you're not going to be able to just find this information, and you want the most recent information, right? The market changes, right? It's not like we're not in the same market we were 3 years ago or 10 years ago. It's a different market, and there's really no easy way to benchmark. So you gotta either run an RFP, talk to a consultant, maybe even talk to others in the industry. But again, benchmarking I think is ultimately critical to savings.
Yeah, and consultants play a big role now more than ever. And especially enterprise level shippers, they rely on those consultants to give them the best advice to help them reduce costs. I'm sorry, Justin, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to bring up what Timur said when we were going through our rehearsals. Data is the new oil, right? And one of the areas that I thought about after he said that is, you as a retailer, as a direct consumer manufacturer, as a 3PL, you have a lot of data, okay? And I think that it's in your best interest to, whether you're going to use it yourself or whether you're going to bring it to a consultant, leveraging that data, knowing what zip codes you're actually shipping to, what's your what type of what's a box and whisker plot, if you will, for your weights and zones. These are pretty important things that you already have, especially if you've got a good shipping software. But even if you're just using a regular stuff, it's in your WMS, it's in your ERP. You've got this information, and it is a gold mine, I was going to say, but that's mixing metaphors between oil and gold. But the concept is you got all that treasure, which is going to help either yourself or a consultant put you in the best position again for those RFPs for the carriers that are out there. Because it's not like it was 15 years ago where you had 3 or 4 carriers, regional carriers covered maybe a state or 2. Now we still call them regionals, but they're companies that cover large population areas. The older regionals now cover states upon states, half of the country. So you've got so many more choices than you did in the early 2000s. And that data is the key to helping you take advantage of it and choosing which partners to use.
Data is very important. Okay, speaking of those types of strategies, I want to explore a little more about some advanced strategies and maybe discuss regional shipping and zone awareness. So my question is, can zone-based shipping really help businesses optimize costs?
Jerry, I'll touch on that. So I think let's assume someone's already got a mix of national and regional carriers in their network, right? They get an order from a customer and they have to go figure out the most effective way to fulfill it and ship it out the door, right? Which carrier service am I going to use? Which carrier? And this is, I think, super important, right? Talk about speaking of zones and how pricing works. Because one of the things I mentioned earlier is that the regional carriers are typically going to be serving that zone 2, zone 3, that 0 to 300 mile kind of distance package, sometimes up to 600 miles. Although now, to Justin's point, they're growing, they're getting larger. But let's just assume it's that shorter zone. So this is where the retailer, the shipper, has to have the right tools to ensure they're leveraging the right carrier for the right job. And this could mean let's use the least expensive option, because that's the consumer just wants it free shipping. They don't care about how long it takes. Or it could mean, hey, we have to deliver by a certain time frame. And the only way to kind of figure out which carrier to use, which service to use, is to have a system in place that can analyze all the rates. Not just the rates, but because remember, we have the base rate and the accessorial charges, the fuel surcharges, the DIM divisors, and all these factors to take into account. So what we're going to look for is the total charge. Like, what am I going to get billed at the end of the day for that shipment, right? So zones, of course, are going to come into play. So if you're looking for it as a shorter distance shipment, then of course you're going to compare that regional carrier, the carriers that you have. You're going to have more options on that shorter distance shipment, because you've got the regionals, you've got the nationals, you've got a mix. But maybe if it's that longer distance shipment and you don't have, then the national service comes into play. Okay, so not only are you doing this on one order, but you're doing this on hundreds and thousands of orders a day, right? So because you've got to achieve that business objective every single time. So you got to have that system in place that takes the inputs, creates the outputs, and gets you that total charge. Jerri, you enjoying that drink?
Oh my, I took one more sip and but I'm feeling really toasty. Nobody tell my boss, but I'm starting to become a whiskey fan.
Whiskey's good for you. I'm just telling you.
I don't want to go overboard, but wow. Ooh, Lord, that is strong. Okay. So
we're helping people save money today on this episode, even if it's
exactly.
one
Oh
piece
my
of advice.
gosh.
Let's hope. I'll say cheers to them saving some money on shipping.
Cheers.
Definitely cheers to saving money.
So speaking of saving money, we talked about the zone-based awareness. Is there some more detail about zone skipping or line haul or whatever folks are calling it that can help them with significant cost savings, especially for those long distance shipments?
Yeah. I mean, listen, we've got what I just mentioned, that regional carrier is going to cover that shorter distance parcel for them, that shorter distance shipment. But what if let's use a scenario like this. So let's say it's a retailer out in LA and they want to ship something going to New York. All right, well, that regional carrier does not take it coast to coast, but there's another regional carrier on the East Coast that could make that last mile delivery. It's just a matter of getting that package to them, and that's where a zone skipping analysis can come into play, right? So whether it's New York or Dallas or Chicago, or you're shipping to another region where you could leverage a regional carrier to do the last mile delivery. And to get it there, you could either leverage an over-the-road transportation middle mile or an air freight middle mile to get the package to that destination.
Right.
Now you have to combine, your the compare the what you would normally pay with your national carrier from LA to New York to the cost of that last mile delivery in New York plus the middle mile, the cost of the middle mile. And let me tell you, I mean, this it's surprising how many I've seen a lot of opportunities like this. I've seen a lot of success in zone skipping, and I'll tell you right now, you'd be surprised how many opportunities there are to do this. It's just a matter of diving in and doing some comparison.
And I would say, just for disaster recovery purposes, everybody should at least plan for zone skipping. One of the things we saw during the pandemic was if a warehouse got shut down, regardless of the reason, okay, but let's say there was no power at a warehouse, or let's say there, again, you have a pandemic lockdown, or you have labor concerns at a particular warehouse. The ability to line haul can allow you to maintain a particular amount of functionality and maintain a level of service to your customers, even if you lose a warehouse. So everybody should at least be planning a line haul strategy, even if they don't have to implement it right away.
That's very good advice. I had not thought of that. And in this day and age, with the amount of security risks that we have, that is very good advice. Okay, we're going to do something fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and we're going to call it this or that. Now, these questions, they are topic related. It's not just a goofy question to pass the time. So I'm going to ask you the questions, you answer, and then I will share with you the related topics to it. So, Timur.
Let's do it.
I'm going to start with you. And Justin, when he answers, you answer. Would you rather always be 1 minute early or constantly running 5 minutes late?
1 minute early.
Yeah, but yeah, there's no way I could ever be late.
No.
So can I move that to 3 minutes early?
We'll take it. Okay, cats or dogs?
I say dogs. I'm allergic to cats.
They're both awesome.
They're both, yeah. Okay, would you rather have the ability to teleport or fly?
Good one. I would say fly. It seems like a lot more fun.
I have a fear of heights, so I'll just teleport. Seems faster.
All right. Would you rather mismatched socks for a week or only eat brown M&Ms forever?
No, that's an easy one. Mismatched socks.
Yeah, I don't care how I look.
Okay. All right. Here's the topic related questions.
All right.
Flat rate shipping or calculated rates? Speed or precision?
Oh, I'm gonna go calculated rates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Precision all day, every day.
Okay. Technological innovation or tried and true methods in shipping? So robots or humans?
Right now, I'm gonna go humans in order to understand the process. I just think it's easier and faster to make adjustments with humans.
I had an old boss that said, if you can't do it on paper, you can't do it in software. So it depends upon the maturity of that portion. If it is a mature portion, robots all day long. Okay, because now it's boring. But if it is a new thing, humans all day long, because it's interesting.
Okay. All right. Priority shipping or standard shipping? Fast but expensive or slower and cheaper, basically? Priority shipping or standard shipping?
No, I'm gonna go go lowest cost. I'm gonna.
There you go.
There you go.
I prepare, so I'm just gonna take the shipping time into account, and I would rather have it cheaper.
He's gonna implement ProShip and let it make the decision for me.
There you go.
Domestic shipping or international shipping? Familiar territory or global reach?
Yeah, domestic. Let's go with domestic.
Any reasons on that, Timur? Because I have a huge reason
with domestic. Yeah.
So right now we're in the midst of not only an increase in the number of labor concerns in the market, but we are also, which usually goes hand in hand with labor concerns, we're in the midst of tariff concerns.
Yeah.
There are trade wars going on, the largest one between the U.S. and China. However, there are also rumors of some tariff wars that may occur between the U.S. and Europe. So with that being said, I like predictability, even if it's only 1 minute early. I want to ensure that things are able to arrive with a cost that are known. And so I would go with domestic, where you would not have tariffs.
Well said. Okay, so that's all for our this or that segment. But remember, this was all just for fun. The real key to navigating the world of shipping is knowledge and research. Do your due diligence, ask questions, don't be afraid to negotiate, and find the solutions that work best for you. As we wrap it up, what piece of advice do you want to leave listeners with? Justin, I'm going to start with you.
Remember, if you negotiate appropriately, you can do exact costs and time in transits such that you can have greater level of predictability in order to enforce the expectation you have with your customers.
Timur?
I'm going to go with something a little bit more general, and this has become one of my favorite quotes. It's Sam Walton, founder of Walmart. He once stated that if you don't listen to your customers, someone else will. And I'll say this: I'm constantly inspired by CEOs and leaders who are not only staying connected to their customers, but at the front lines, but they're also rolling up their sleeves and working alongside their teams because they want to gain firsthand experience to continue to improve their business and service their customers.
Very good advice, gentlemen. Thank you both for coming today. We had a lot of fun. And remember, everybody, to follow us on LinkedIn for some very exciting announcements that we're about to drop. And join us for our next ParcelCast episode. Goodbye. Oh,
Bye,
cheers.
everyone. Cheers. Cheers.
Yes.
Last one for real this time.
Thanks for joining us on ProShip ParcelCast Unwined. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a review. We appreciate your thoughts. Looking for even more strategies and solutions to navigate the shipping landscape? Head over to our website at ProShipInc.com. We're not just another software company. We're dedicated to becoming the perfect fit for your unique needs, helping you ship smarter, not harder. Cheers, and see you next time.